What I didn't expect was when they came back in kind of stumbling over their words and they were like, well, we need another sample. That, my friends, is when I knew something was wrong and they weren't telling me. Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Mandy, the Handmade Homeschooler, and we're gonna take a little detour today, and I'm gonna explain what happened over the last 2 weeks. The content that I had out on my channel in the middle of January was filmed a couple weeks prior. I filmed 2 to 3 weeks in advance, and I thought the craziness of this school year had passed me by, and I was wrong by a long shot. So if you're new to my channel, usually my videos are about homeschooling and education, motherhood, and this is going to be kind of in that motherhood realm. And one of the reasons why I want to put this out there is because I want to raise awareness for this disease and what it looks like, so maybe you have a chance of actually recognizing it where we did not. I'm not even really sure where I should start, but I guess I'll just start from the top. So 2 weeks ago, my son came in from playing outside and he was like, "Mom, look." And he showed me his leg, and he had these red spots that look exactly like the ones that I have on my arm for my RA. And he was like, "We match." And I was like, oh no. So immediately I knew I was gonna have to call the doctor. But things took a turn for the worse, like really fast. Faster than I could have imagined, and what we thought was just a rash landed him in the children's hospital for a week. And we were blindsided. So we started kind of watching him a little bit, and it was after business hours, so I said, okay, I'll call the hospital. Okay, so to explain what I mean by I'll call the hospital. We are military. My husband is Marine Corps. We still live in the Marine Corps town, and even though he's retired, our healthcare still primarily goes through our naval hospital. So I said, okay, I'll call the naval hospital in the morning. I'll get him in to see the doctor. And I called the doctor, and by this time it was spreading very quickly. They had no appointments, even though I called immediately in the morning, like first thing, 6 o'clock in the morning I called. No appointments, which is so typical of military hospitals. But so we took him to the ER, and she was like, oh, take him to a walk-in clinic. And we were like, no. We took him to the ER, and we got to the Naval Hospital ER. And because of my condition, I'm very familiar with how things go in the ER. I know protocol. I know what happens there. I'm pretty much on a first name basis with half the staff. I knew right off the bat things were not going to the way they normally go. And the first thing they did was, which I expected, was they wanted to take his blood and test. Cool, that's exactly what I expected. What I didn't expect was when they came back in kind of stumbling over their words and they were like, well, we need another sample. That, my friends, is when I knew something was wrong and they weren't telling me. They weren't trying to scare me, and I get that. Like, they were trying to make me feel better, but as a parent, that spidey sense that kind of happens, that happened. So they did it again, and they were gone for a while. Now, we went to the hospital in the early morning. By this time, it was like 3 in the afternoon. It was a long time. And they finally came back, and the doctor sat me down and he was like, look, his platelets are extremely low. And I was like, well, what does that mean? And he showed me like the red spots all over my son's body. My son was covered, and that was why I brought him in. He was just, this rash wasn't just a rash. It was this, everybody says it different, so please give me a little grace. It's called like petechiae or petechiae. I'm not sure which way to say it, but I have it on me. But what I have on my body looks nothing like my son's. By this time in the afternoon, when the doctor came back in, and I had been watching it this whole time, we could barely see any of his actual skin. It was just all red, and it was spreading from his legs to his toes, all the way up. It was on his face. It was like up in his eye socket. He had just spots and patches all over his body. It was insane. Never seen anything like it. He was like, look, his platelets are really low, and that's why he looks like this. And he has to go to the children's hospital about 90 minutes north, and he has to go via ambulance because he needs to go now. And I was like, we can't take him, like we can leave from here and take him. And they were like, no, he needs to go in the ambulance with the EMTs. He can't be by himself. And we were like, oh my goodness. I knew something was wrong. Like that little sense that tells you something's off was going off. And I was like, oh man. And he goes, look, I think he has this condition called ITP, which is an autoimmune disease. And he was like, does anybody have autoimmune diseases in your family? And I was like, well, I do. My mom does, my grandmother, but it's all the same one. It's all rheumatoid arthritis. And he was like, well, this is an autoimmune disease. And he's like, I can't actually diagnose him with that though, because I am not a hematologist. He was like, he needs to see a pediatric hematologist. And the hematologist that we were sent to is like the best in the state. I researched this guy. He's fantastic. And, you know, I felt great about that. But I planned on going with my child in the ambulance, and I had been really good about not losing my cool or losing my patience or getting upset or letting the fear show throughout this whole ordeal until the EMTs came and they were there to transport him to the children's hospital. By this time, it was about 7 o'clock in the evening. It was a long, long time that we had to wait in this little ER room. And they were like, we're sorry, you can't ride with us. And I was like, what? Like, I felt like somebody slapped me. And, you know, I gave him all of his stuff. And I'm trying not to like get worked up or cry because my child is sitting on this huge gurney and he looks so small. And, you know, they were wheeling him into the ambulance and they were like, you can't go, you have to ride in your own car. And I about lost it. But I couldn't show any fear because if I was scared and if I started crying, he was gonna be scared. So, oh man, I don't think it was ever harder to choke down tears at that point than it was when they lifted him up into the ambulance and I had to say goodbye. It was so hard, even though I knew I was gonna see him 2 hours later. It was just like, how could they take my baby? That was all I kept thinking was, how could they take him and not take me? I'm the parent. And I get it. There's, you know, rules and regulations, and, you know, it was the best thing for him. He needed them more than he needed me at that moment. So the EMT, one of the EMTs, he came over to us and he was like, you guys go home, pack your bags. You might be there a while. And we were like, oh man. So we had to race home. We threw all of our stuff into tote bags, and then we raced off to the children's hospital. And I had never been here before, but the children's hospital was really neat. I will give them that. I'm so used to our old military hospital that when I saw this children's hospital, this was like wondrous to me. It was like a field trip. It was like a homeschool field trip in itself. There were, it was like going to the aquarium. They have like this fish theme going on, this like ocean theme, and it was really neat. I felt so silly because there I was, worried out of my mind, watching the clock tick by while we're in the car driving on this long road at 9 o'clock at night. And all I can think of is, I gotta get to my kid, you know? I walk in that hospital room, and there he is, propped up in his bed playing Minecraft. Like he didn't have a care in the world. And then the doctor came in to see us, and she said that we would see his hematologist in the morning, and he was getting a special platelet treatment. So my son had been diagnosed with a condition called ITP. Do not ask me to say or pronounce the name of what it actually stands for. I've heard a couple people say it, and I will butcher it. So you can look it up. It's called ITP. It's just basically when you have an autoimmune disease that a lot of times when kids get colds, after they get better from the cold, basically the immune system starts attacking the platelets. At least that's how I understand it. I might be wrong. I apologize if I'm wrong there. I'm still very, very new to what's happening here. And I've had a lot of information thrown at me over the last 2 weeks, and my brain is just like pretty much a bowl of oatmeal right now. That's kind of where I'm at. So basically his immune system has attacked his platelets, and a normal person has about 150 to 440,000 platelets in their body. My son, by the time he got to the hospital, was at 1,000, or what they call 1 at the children's hospital. He was at the lowest level you can have. Don't ask me what happens when he gets to 0, because I was too afraid to ask, so I don't actually know. And I'm kind of in that ignorance is bliss right now, because I am not in any frame of mind to find out what would happen. So we stayed with him while that night he got his very first IVIG treatment. Now this treatment was a treatment that he got over a 6-hour-long period through his IV that helps the production of platelets in his body. And it's a very slow, like really, really slow process. And there's several IV bags they have to change out. Some of it is steroids, and it was really hard on him. The steroids made him really kind of like sick to his stomach, and he just, man, he would get nauseated. Oh, it was not fun. About 2 o'clock in the morning, I think our heads hit the pillow, and we zonked out. And then about 4 hours later, I had to get back up. So I get up and I get ready to go back over to the hospital. I get all the rest of the boys up. We get to the hospital because I wanted to meet this new doctor, and I wanted to see what they would say. And they pretty much reiterated what the military hospital said. He had ITP. There's either acute or chronic ITP. And basically where we're at right now is we're still trying to find out if it's acute or chronic. And we're not gonna know probably for quite a while, which is why I made this video now. I kind of held off because I was hoping we would know if he was acute or chronic, and we don't know yet. So he had to get a couple rounds of treatments of IVIG before his levels were high enough to where we could leave the hospital. So slowly, as he got the IVIG treatments, the redness started going away from his skin, and all of a sudden we could see his skin again on his legs, and it was like, whoa, like I'm pretty sure like if I had watched his legs, I could see the spots disappearing if I stared long enough. It was really, really crazy to watch. And we were there for quite a while. And if you follow me on Instagram, I posted a lot of stories about it. I was posting updates about it, just kind of talking to other parents who have kids with ITP, and I've learned a lot about it. His hospital stay was good. We didn't have any problems with the hospital. They were a great hospital. He's got a great doctor. And when his levels were high enough, they said, okay, you can take him home, but he's got to be really, really careful. He can't bump his head. If he bumps his head right now, he's at a very high risk of brain bleed, which is terrifying. Like, honestly terrifying. I get scared every time he gets into a car or something, because what if we get into a car accident, you know? Which does not do me good to sit there and you know, go over my head all the time. I know that, but it has not been easy. This has not been an easy couple weeks at all. My mom came and helped out for a couple of days, and really we just had to keep an eye on him while hoping that his platelets go up. So yesterday we traveled back to the children's hospital, and he had labs drawn again, and his platelet level was only 20 higher than it was when we left, which was still really low. So his chart's still flagged, and he's barely over 50 right now. He needs to be 150 to 440. He's not anywhere near that. So his platelets are still pretty low. Now they are higher, which is good. So, I mean, we're making progress, but he's still low. He's still pretty low. So right now he has to stop all sports. He can't do anything really that physical. So, you know, he's back to school. Like, we did school this past week. I tried to get back to normal as fast as possible for his sake. I don't want him to feel like everything is so different and his little world's been turned upside down for any longer than it needed to be. So we got back into our routine as quickly as possible, because routines are very comforting to children. And he did school. You would never know by looking at him right now anything was wrong with him. His face is totally clear. His body's mostly clear of all of the red, and all of the bruising is all gone. However, he's still at a high risk for brain bleed, and he's going to be on this journey for quite a while. 80% of kids and people diagnosed with ITP clear up within 6 to 12 months. So that's good. That's a good prognosis. However, there is a 10% chance that this could be chronic, which, you know, is kind of scary. If it's chronic, he will have to routinely go, from what I understand, he will have to routinely go in and get platelet treatments just like the one that he got. He could even have to have his spleen out, and that's not good either. So we're really praying that this is not going to be a chronic thing, that he will be part of that 80% where it's like 6 to 12 months and it's gone. But we do know that, you know, there is a chance that this could be a chronic thing for him, and this could be our new normal for a long time. This is at least going to be our normal for probably the next 12 months. And he's going to have to routinely go in for labs. He's going to have to routinely have his platelet levels checked. And because the only way that we can know if something's wrong is if he has a lab done. We can't tell just by looking at his skin what his platelet level is. So that's something that we have to consider. So it's been a long 2 weeks. My brain is oatmeal, my brain is mush, and I really just want to tell y'all thank you for, especially all the people on Instagram and Facebook who are in my group and who have been following me and sending me messages and just encouraging me. I had literally hundreds of messages, hundreds. I couldn't even read all of them when I was in the hospital. It was crazy, but just know that I saw them. I read so many of them, and I really, really appreciate all of them. They were so helpful to me and to my family. Jake was really encouraged that many people were thinking about him and praying for him. He was, you know, he thought that was so cool. But yeah, I had all this like cool content planned for this week. I was gonna do something on like hobbies and you know, curriculum, and it's just gonna have to wait for a little bit until my brain comes back down to like a normal level. But so again, thank you all. I appreciate you all so much. That's been where we have been at, and you know, I'll probably talk more about his condition over the next year. I do want to get the word out about ITP because I had never heard of it. Like, this was brand new to me, and I just thought he had a rash. Who knew? You know, I mean, there was no way to know this stuff unless you're a med student or a doctor, you know. So that was our 2 weeks. Thanks for hanging out with me today. And if you know somebody with ITP or have a kid with ITP, Let me know down in the comments. I would love to know what's your journey been like, and how has it been? Like, what do I expect over the next year? Tell me, please. All right, I'll see you guys in the next video. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and as always, happy homeschooling.